Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
It was shaping up to be another typical morning at the breakfast table as my mother and sister started their usual argument. "Why can't you dress a bit more appropriately for school, Maggie?" Mom snapped. "It wouldn't hurt to look more like a girl once in a while." "I dress like most other girls, Mom," Maggie replied between bites of toast. "Wearing dresses and heels to school is outdated. Do you want me to look like a total weirdo?" "I just want you to present yourself well," Mom sighed. "I want everyone to see how pretty my daughter is." "You're sweet, Mom," Maggie said with a smile, finishing her juice. Sweet but definitely old-fashioned. As Maggie dashed out the door, Mom turned her attention to Dad, complaining about Maggie's appearance and grades. She could do so much better if she were motivated. "I know she could be getting A's and B's instead of these Cs. I just need to find a way to motivate her to dress better and work harder," Mom lamented. "I understand, dear, but I can't think of any new ways to motivate her either," Dad replied, just as frustrated. Maggie, however, remained unfazed no matter how hard they tried to change her. "Sometimes it felt like they were pushing against a stubborn block of Jell-O, though I thought that analogy didn't quite fit since Jell-O could be molded." A few weeks later, I saw Maggie tossing several cassette tapes into the trash and trying to conceal them. "I've never seen you work so hard, Maggie," I teased as I entered the room. "What's up?" "Motivational tapes," she replied with a sneer while mixing the trash. "A little gift from Mom and Dad. They think listening to these will make me work harder in school and in life. I hate to disappoint them, but they're not brainwashing me into becoming some goody-goody." "Hold on a second," I said, "I've heard those programs can be really effective. Why not give them a try? What's the harm?" I was more interested in causing trouble for Maggie than actually helping her. Maggie shrugged and gestured to the trash. "If you're so excited about them, help yourself. And by the way, you're such a suck-up," she said, leaving the room. "But a motivated one." I laughed as I retrieved the tapes. Here was a perfect chance to outshine Maggie. I'd listened to the tapes myself, and when Mom and Dad saw my improved report card, I'd tell them about the tapes. I hid them in the back of my desk drawer to avoid spoiling my surprise. That night, I played the tapes before bed. Despite the volume being nearly maxed out, I could barely hear them. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. The next morning, I struggled to remember much from the tapes but felt refreshed and eager to start the day. "Looking good this morning, Jim," Dad commented. "Ready for that big test today? You need an A to boost your grade for the year." "Studied all evening, Dad," I said with a smile, curious about the edge I might gain from the tape I had listened to. "I'm really looking forward to the test." "That's wonderful, Jim," Mom replied, giving Dad a hug. "I'm sure you'll ace it." "Suck up," Maggie muttered as she entered the room. I just grinned and stuck my tongue out at her. I enjoyed being Mom's favorite and wasn't about to start a fight with Maggie at breakfast. That was Mom's job. "Mom," right on cue, asked Maggie, "How were the tapes, Maggie? Feeling more motivated today?" "They were great, Mom," Maggie said, glancing at me to see if I'd reveal anything. We both knew her main motivation for going to school was seeing her friends, but I kept quiet for now. "Gotta run, nice chatting," she called as she dashed out the door. Mom beamed. "I think they're already making a difference," she told Dad. "I'm excited to see her report card. This could be a turning point for her." "Yes, dear, I'm sure they've helped," Dad mumbled, still engrossed in his newspaper. "What was that about her report card?" Mom asked. "Just go back to your paper, dear," Mom said with a dramatic sigh. "I'll let you know when she makes the honor roll." "I bet I'll get there first," I said, taking small bites of toast and sipping my juice. I wasn't in my usual rush to finish breakfast. The tape must be calming me down for the test, I thought. Mom smiled and patted me on the back. "We're sure you can make it, dear. It's Maggie we're worried about. Though with those tapes, She might just surpass you. Not a chance, Mom, I retorted defensively. Maggie will never be as good as me. Passing me would be a fantasy. Give your sister a chance, Jim, Dad said, putting down his paper. You'll feel pretty silly if she ends up with better grades, so don't start gloating. Yeah, right, I mumbled under my breath. Dad swatted me with his rolled-up newspaper. I heard you. Be quiet and give her a fair shot. We went to a lot of trouble to get her to listen to those tapes, and we expect results. Okay, I'll be quiet, I said as I sulked out the door, feeling frustrated. But don't expect too much. We all know she doesn't have much to work with. I thought to myself that she wasn't even listening to them, but decided to wait it out. Thanks for not blowing my cover at breakfast, Maggie said later. That was really nice of you. I didn't do it for you, I insisted. If I had revealed it, Mom would have taken the tapes away from me, and I want to keep them. Hey, I don't care either, Maggie shrugged as we walked to class. You're welcome to all the stuff Mom and Dad give me. Maybe there are lessons on being a better suck-up in one of them. She laughed dismissively. Suck-up? Me? I snapped, feeling my face heat up. Dad rushed to your defense at breakfast, so maybe you've been doing a bit of sucking up yourself? Playing the daddy's girl routine again? Maggie laughed and flicked her hair back. A little charm goes a long way with guys, especially when it's from their daughter. I bet you'll never be as good as I am, and kisses won't change that, I said, feeling frustrated. I'm smarter and more motivated, and with those tapes, I'll surpass you in no time. Don't care, I'm still way prettier than you. Maggie laughed, tossing her head back and fluffing her hair. Weeks passed with Maggie and Mom continuing their breakfast squabbles. Maggie was undeniably a slacker, but her grades weren't terrible. Both knew the arguments had deeper roots. Maggie had never been the sweet daughter Mom had dreamed of. She loathed baby dolls and resisted being dressed up in pretty outfits as a child. Even if Maggie made the honor roll, Mom wouldn't be satisfied unless she accepted the award in a stunning gown. Are you improving in school, Maggie? Mom would ask innocently. School still sucks, Mom, Maggie would reply nonchalantly, much to Mom's dismay. It sucked then, it sucks now, and it'll keep on sucking. I saw a really cute outfit at the mall yesterday, Mom would say in a vain attempt to steer the conversation to what she really wanted to discuss. Maybe I'll pick it up for you. It would make a nice school outfit. Got enough jeans and stuff, Mom. Besides, I'm not wearing one of those little Miss Muffy outfits you love so much. Too frilly for me, Maggie would retort. Suddenly, a picture of a frilly dress with puffy sleeves and a full skirt flashed in my mind. Such a pretty outfit, I thought. Maggie's so lucky and doesn't even realize it. I'd love a dress like that. I nearly choked on my milk, struggling to regain my composure. What made me think something so bizarre? I wondered. Why would I want to wear a dress? What's your problem? Maggie asked, noticing my reaction. Thinking about getting one of the cheerleaders into a dress like that. I bet you'd love that. I wasn't thinking anything at all. I protested, fearing she somehow knew about my lingering thoughts. But now that you mention it, Mom's right. You would look nice in a pretty outfit like that. It wouldn't hurt to look a bit more feminine, you know. Think of how nice it would make Mom feel. If you're so worried about Mom's feelings, why don't you take the job? Maggie shot back maliciously. What job? What are you talking about? I asked, confused as I realized I had lost track of the conversation. Daughter of the family, Maggie laughed, gesturing towards me. There you go, Mom, your very own sweet little girl ready for a pretty dress, patent leather shoes, a little purse, and gloves. You two could have a blast shopping for cute party dresses. You're crazy, I yelled, ready to reach across the table. And it's sick to talk like that. Just, forget it. Maggie looked at me oddly for a moment before hurrying off to meet her friends. I suddenly felt a gnawing anxiety. How had I gotten caught up in a conversation about my sister's wardrobe? I must be losing it. Gotta go, I mumbled, grabbing my books and rushing out the door. I focused on my upcoming trigonometry test to push those strange thoughts away. Here you go, Jim, Maggie announced a few days later, tossing several new tapes onto my bed. Mom's Motivational Series, Part 2. She laughed as she flopped into a chair. I don't know if I want these after our argument, I said, reaching for the tapes. You were pretty harsh with me that morning. Breaking my heart, Jim, Maggie sneered. I remember you jumped on Mom's side and took a cheap shot at me. Now you're acting like your precious feelings are hurt. Bummer. But honestly, Maggie, I said with a tone of sadness, feeling misunderstood, I'm just trying to help. You could look so pretty if you dressed up every once in a while. Maggie dropped to her hands and knees, searching the room. Come out, I know you're here, she called. I'm trying to have a serious conversation here, if you don't mind, I shouted as Maggie continued her search. What on earth are you doing? Looking for Mom, of course, she said with a grin. I know she's hiding somewhere. I can hear her. I'm amazed she got you to sound like yourself, but I'm impressed. Get out of here, you idiot. I yelled, losing my patience. You're too clueless to see how nice you could look and how happy you'd make Mom. Maggie turned and smiled. The job's still open. Help yourself to any dress in my closet. As she slammed the door behind her, I collapsed onto my bed, fighting back tears. Maggie was right. I had sided with Mom against her, but why? It wasn't just another cheap shot, I was genuinely trying to help. Now, Maggie thinks I should be some kind of sissy pretending to be a girl. If that wasn't bad enough, there were those persistent thoughts I kept having. These thoughts popped into my mind at the most inconvenient times. Just last week, during a history test on Victorian England, I couldn't shake the image of myself in a delicate lace dress with a floppy hat and parasol. Soon after, I started growing my hair out despite my parents' daily nagging to cut it. I think I look good with long hair, Mom, I explained patiently. Lots of guys wear their hair long and some even tie it back in a ponytail. It looks great and it's the latest style. The latest style for boys is looking like girls? Dad asked with barely concealed scorn. First you get your ear pierced, now you're growing your hair. Are you nuts? Gotta keep up with trends, Dad, or I'll end up a nerd. You already are a nerd, Maggie laughed. Now you're just a funnier looking nerd. Enough from both of you, Mom scolded. Jim, if you're going to have long hair, you'd better keep it neat and clean, or I'll cut it off while you're asleep. And Maggie, listen to those tapes, I'm not throwing money away. Don't worry, Mom, I'm making good use of them, Maggie said with a quick glance at me. I wasn't about to call her a liar, I enjoyed the tapes too much to lose my sauce. And I'll keep my hair nice, Mom, I promise, I added, relieved that I could continue growing my hair. Lately, it had become very important to me, though I couldn't quite pinpoint why. Maybe, I thought, I'm just trying to outdo Maggie by showing her I can look good with long hair when she insists on keeping hers short. What I couldn't admit, though, were the thoughts I had about how pretty I'd look with long, curly hair. The arguments between Maggie and Mom continued, as did the tapes, which seemed to keep improving. The latest set promised motivational messages mixed with songs from popular rock groups. I spent hours listening to the tapes while studying or drifting off to sleep, hoping my grades would soon take a giant leap forward. After all, I followed the tapes religiously, and Mom had promised Maggie they'd make a significant difference if she relaxed and let the messages work. I spent many evenings with just a small light on, headphones on, relaxed, absorbing the messages, and waiting for results. I focused intensely on those tapes because the thoughts about wearing pretty dresses and having long curly hair kept resurfacing. Despite my concentration, those ideas wouldn't go away. One day, while reading a newspaper, I found myself captivated by an advertisement for girls' clothes. I stared at the page for 5 minutes, and when I finally managed to put it down, I had a powerful urge to try on some of Maggie's clothes. With no one else home, I couldn't resist any longer. I dashed upstairs and flung open Maggie's closet. There, pushed to the back, was a pink mini dress she had worn for a family celebration. I grabbed the dress and hurried back to my room, locking the door behind me. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I removed my shirt, undid my belt, and stepped out of my jeans. I pulled Maggie's dress over my head and tugged it into place. The moment I adjusted it, I was overwhelmed by a profound sense of peace and happiness. I stared at myself in the mirror, unable to move or change. It felt like I had discovered heaven. I must have worn the dress for nearly half an hour, practicing different poses, walking, and sitting. But just as suddenly as the urge to put it on had hit me, I felt compelled to take it off. I couldn't stop until I had returned the dress to Maggie's closet and put my pants back on. My heart was still racing, and my hands were sweaty and shaking. I couldn't believe I had actually worn Maggie's dress, but my unbuttoned shirt and loose belt were evidence of what had happened. Or was it that terrible? I couldn't decide, and it was driving me crazy. Afterwards, I started doing more things that made me question my sanity. One day in the shower, I reached to turn off the water and accidentally picked up Maggie's razor. Staring at it and then at my legs, I was suddenly repulsed by the hair on my legs. Lathering up with soap, I sat on the edge of the tub and shaved every bit of hair from my ankles to my butt. The urge wasn't satisfied, so I shaved my underarms too. I ran my hands over my now smooth legs and admired how shapely they looked. They were smooth, silky, and surprisingly pretty. I felt an unexpected happiness. I applied lotion to keep my skin soft, patted myself dry with the fluffiest towel I could find, and reluctantly put on my briefs and jeans. It wasn't until I sat on my bed putting on socks that I realized with horror what I had done. What's wrong with me? I wondered, absent-mindedly brushing my hair. 4 days after, I was convinced that everyone I met could somehow tell I had tried on Maggie's dress and shaved my legs, even though I knew logically there was no way for that to be true. It happened in the privacy of my home. I had returned the dress and wore long pants to cover up. There was no visible evidence, but the doubt lingered. Now I'd be stuck wearing long pants even though the weather was warming up and everyone else would be wearing shorts. I was stuck until the hair on my legs grew back, if it ever would. If that wasn't bad enough, there was always the problem with my underarms. If I wore my favorite muscle shirts, I couldn't raise my arms lest my girlish underarms be seen. Boy, I really screwed up this time, I thought as I began my 100 strokes on the other side of my head. Once I finished my daily brushing routine, I gathered my hair and pulled it back into a ponytail. Too bad I can't use one of Maggie's scrunches to hold my ponytail, I thought to myself as I put a rubber band around it. These rubber bands are giving me split ends. At school I tried to concentrate on what was going on in class, but I kept getting distracted by the girls in my classes. I couldn't stop staring at some of them, especially if they wore a skirt or dress. I didn't care what Maggie said about not wearing dresses to school, these girls wore them and they looked great. Judging from the way they acted, they really seemed to enjoy being dressed up. They walked differently, they sat differently, everything they did seemed so feminine that it drove me wild and, to my amazement, jealous. I had to be crazy. I'm supposed to be a normal teenage boy lusting after pretty girls, yet more and more I was envious of their pretty clothes, the way they wore their hair, and the way they moved. I wanted to be just like them, to have long, pretty hair, to wear pretty dresses and nylons, to tantalize with a slight scent of my perfume. It was insane, positively insane, but I couldn't control the feelings building up in me. I wanted to be the daughter Mom always wanted Maggie to be. I wanted to wear pretty dresses to school, to do my nails in pretty colors. I wanted to experience what seemed to be the delightfully wonderful world of a girl. One day in school there was a pep rally and the cheerleaders were allowed to wear their uniforms to class. I was in hell as I watched those pretty girls in their short skirts walking down the halls laughing and having the time of their lives. Why was I stuck in these awful pants and plain shirt when I should be wearing something colorful and pretty? I had to do something about it, but until I got home I would have to endure the torture of seeing these girls so self-confident in their femininity, practically daring me to join them. I couldn't begin to figure out why I felt the way I did. I never noticed those things before, but suddenly they seemed so important to me. I tried to force the thoughts out of my mind, but as before they came right back, stronger each time. One day I walked into the house after school and was relaxing with a sandwich and cold glass of milk when I was overcome with a strange feeling. No one was home, but I'm not sure that would have made a difference. I had something to do and I'd simply die if I couldn't get it done. I went straight to Maggie's room and quickly pulled the pink dress from its exile at the back of her closet. This time, though, I wasn't going to rush back to my room to try it on as I had many times in the past few weeks. This time I was going to do it right, the way a girl should. I opened every drawer in her dresser until I found exactly what I wanted: a pair of pretty satin panties that still had the tags on them, a bra, white pantyhose that Maggie had worn once, and a white half-slip trimmed in lace. Carefully cradling my treasures, I hurried off to my room, afraid that I might come to my senses and put everything back. As I had done countless times over the past few weeks, I locked the door and double-checked to make sure it couldn't be opened. I considered closing the drapes, but there weren't any nearby houses that could see in, and the thought that someone might catch me added a thrill to what I was about to do. I quickly shed all my boys' clothing and, with trembling hands, pulled the satin panties up to my waist. I had worn Maggie's panties before, but they had been plain cotton, softer than my briefs but nothing special. This satin felt incredibly different. It was soft, silky, and cool against my skin, creating an immediate, intense reaction. The contrast between the delicate satin and my unexpected arousal was striking. I recalled an English assignment on contrasts and wished I could write about this one. Struggling a bit, I managed to put on the bra for the first time, hooking it in the back and stuffing it with socks to approximate Maggie's bust size. The pantyhose were tricky. I had seen women in commercials and movies handle them effortlessly, but I was terrified of snagging them. Carefully, I eased my right foot in, then my left, and slowly worked the pantyhose up to my thighs. Once they were in place, I hesitated before rolling the waistband over my hips, my heart racing and goosebumps spreading across my skin. I wondered why Maggie didn't appreciate these garments. The satin panties felt amazing compared to her cotton ones, and the stockings made my legs look so much more attractive than socks ever could. The slip improved the look, hiding the bulge from my panties. With the pantyhose keeping everything in place, the slip made me look more feminine, my nylon-covered legs extending gracefully beneath the lace hem. Even though I was still excited, I felt a growing sense of calm and certainty that dressing this way was right. I pulled the dress over my head with newfound confidence, feeling as if this was how I was meant to dress. Fully dressed, I was startled to see a reflection in the mirror that resembled Maggie. For a moment, I panicked, thinking Maggie was in the room, but then I realized that the girl in the mirror was me. There were some rough edges, Maggie had more curves, but with a bit of padding, I was sure I could look just as pretty as she did on those rare occasions when she dressed up. I imagined her seeing me now and admitting that while I might be smarter, I was certainly the prettier sister. My time in heaven ended all too quickly. I had to hurry to undress and put things away before anyone came home. I was sure of one thing as I put the clothes away though: something had gone terribly wrong, a horrible mistake had been made at my conception. I was supposed to be a pretty girl, not an average-looking boy. From now on, I vowed, I'd work harder until I could do everything a girl did and do it the way a girl did. When I was finished, my family would realize that although Maggie was just an overgrown tomboy, I was a young lady. Once they realized that, they'd treat me like the young woman I was meant to be. Suddenly, I found myself utterly disgusted by what I had done. I put away Maggie's clothes as fast as possible, then quickly donned my own, and returned to my snack, finding it difficult to eat with the tremor in my hands. What had happened to me? I had seemingly lost all control over my actions, but I was too ashamed to talk to anyone about it. Things kept happening more and more after that. I had an unquenchable desire to dress in Maggie's clothes, to shave my legs and underarms, and keep my hair long and pretty, and I wasn't feeling nearly as guilty about it anymore. Keeping my legs and underarms smooth and silky became a part of my daily shower ritual. Brushing my long hair wasn't a job, it was fun. I even graduated from wearing Maggie's clothes alone at home to wearing panties to school. It was so scary yet exciting. I'd be dressing after a shower and boom, the urge would hit me. I'd wait until Maggie was downstairs, then sneak over to her room and borrow a pair of panties. In school I had to be extra careful in the way I moved, sat, or stood to prevent anyone from seeing the waistband of my panties peeking over my pants. I was trapped, terrified that I'd be caught but thrilled to be getting away with it. Every afternoon when school ended I breathed a sigh of relief that I hadn't been discovered and vowed that I'd never do it again, but the next morning would find me once again pulling on a pair of panties. The feelings had grown so intense that I started to dress more and more often and wanted to wear different things other than Maggie's pink dress. I tried on her jeans, her shorts, and her nightgowns. If it was in her closet or her drawers, I at least tried it on, sometimes as I did with her panties, wearing them with my boys' clothes. It was nearly impossible, for example, to distinguish her white socks from mine, but it made me feel like I was fooling people when I wore them instead of my own. I'll never forget the first time I wore them instead of my own. I was sure that Mom, Dad, Maggie, and the entire world could somehow tell that I was wearing a pair of girls' socks, but no one said a thing or even looked at my feet. After going through Maggie's boring wardrobe, I somehow came up with the idea of checking out my mother's clothes. She and Maggie were about the same size, and whenever she went somewhere special, she wore some of the most gorgeous outfits. I figured if she hounded Maggie so much about wearing more feminine clothes, Mom might just have some really pretty things stashed away in her drawers, and I couldn't wait to try them on. I held out for over 2 more weeks before I finally had to give in to the urges. Mom and Dad were going to be spending a Saturday visiting some out-of-town relatives, and Maggie would also be gone until late evening. The instant I had the house to myself, I locked all of the doors, then ran to Mom's room, undressing as I went. When I reached her closet, I had a strange feeling of excitement, seeing the dresses, skirts, and suits of every color and style which called out to me to try them on. The first outfit I picked to try on was a dark blue dress with sheer sleeves that Mom wore when she and Dad went out for their anniversary dinner. The material was very sheer, but there was something like a built-in slip under it to keep it from being totally see-through. I couldn't wait to try it on, but I wanted to check out Mom's lingerie first in the hope I'd find something pretty to wear under the dress. When I opened her dresser drawer, I couldn't believe my luck. Instead of white cotton, I was staring at satin, nylon, and silk in so many different shades it was as if I was staring at a rainbow. Almost every pair of Mom's panties were lace-trimmed. Some were made of nothing but a stretch kind of lace, while others were so sheer and sexy I found myself blushing. For a moment or two I was shocked to think that my own mother wore these kinds of clothes, then my heart began to pound as I realized that soon I too would be wearing such feminine and sexy items. I picked out several different matching panty, bra, and slip sets to try on, but the one I couldn't wait to wear was red with beautiful, shimmery, black lace at the waistband of the panties. Lace at the bottom and side slit of the full slip, and if that wasn't enough to drive me crazy, the top part of the bra's cups were nothing but lace. I couldn't get out of my regular clothes fast enough. I was all set to tear my shirt when my fumbling fingers finally undid the last button. I pulled down my briefs, but instead of placing them on a neat pile with the rest of my things, I gleefully kicked them across the room. I wanted to have nothing more to do with such ugly, confining clothes. I was a young woman exploring my femininity, and boys' briefs had no place in that world. If I still had any insignificant doubts about what I was doing, they were erased forever when I slid the dress over my head, over my bra, panties, and a pair of sheer black pantyhose. I wanted to run out into the street and shout I love being a girl, but I hadn't yet gotten the hang of the black heels I had also borrowed from Mom's closet. I found a string of Mom's pearls, and after a few seconds' work I managed to get them around my neck and fasten the clasp. I slipped a delicate gold bracelet on my wrist, fastened a dainty chain around my ankle, then set off on wobbly ankles for Mom's vanity and makeup across the room. I reached the vanity without breaking an ankle, then smoothed out my skirt as I'd watched girls at school do before sitting down. My reflection in the vanity mirror was pretty good. I looked a lot like Maggie might look in this dress without makeup on, but that wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to be the pretty sister, and in front of me were the tools I would need to complete my journey from plain to pretty. I just hoped I could master them without anyone discovering what I was doing. I wanted to surprise Mom with a daughter who was pretty and feminine, a poised and confident young woman. I spent the rest of the morning and the entire afternoon in Mom's room experimenting with makeup, clothes, and hair, all the while worried about the feeling that I was supposed to have been a girl. Fighting the feelings wasn't possible anymore. I was caught in a web of satin and lace with no way out. I began to think of how happy I would be to let Mom buy me skirts and dresses to wear to school. Maggie might rebel at the thought of wearing a pretty dress now and then, but I wouldn't. I would learn the proper way to dress, do my hair, wear makeup, and behave as a proper young woman, and Mom would be so proud of me. I had so much to learn, but I wasn't finding a whole lot of time to study. Mom and Dad were staying home more on the weekends, and with finals coming up, Maggie was actually coming straight home from school to study. Luckily, I was able to sneak some of Mom and Maggie's things into my room, where I hid them in the back of my closet. In the afternoons, I'd go to my room to study, but it wasn't schoolwork I was studying. Instead, I was hard at work trying to master makeup and hairstyling. One Saturday afternoon, after finishing showering and shaving my legs and underarms, I was sitting on my bed combing out my hair as Maggie walked past my room. "Your hair's getting pretty long," she laughed as she watched me carefully pull a comb through his hair. "Almost ready for some pretty ribbons and bows." Maggie's comments brought the old feelings crashing back on me. I shouldn't want long hair, and I certainly shouldn't have been wearing the panties I had on. I wanted to cut my hair off right then and there, to change into a pair of boys' briefs and burn the panties. I wanted to, but then I thought of how pretty my hair would look tied back in a ponytail held in place by a cute ribbon. How smooth and soft the panties were, and how rough and heavy my briefs were, and it wasn't a contest. I couldn't do anything about what was happening to me, and I knew it. Lost in thought, I dropped the brush I had in my hand and bent over to retrieve it. "Those are my panties," Maggie exclaimed as she spotted the waistband of her satin panties. "What are you doing wearing my underwear, you little pervert?" "I can explain, Maggie, just gimme a chance," I begged. "What are you trying to do?" Maggie asked, her voice filled with suspicion. "What are you doing with these?" I spent a long time trying to explain to Maggie, who struggled to grasp what seemed perfectly clear to me at the time. Maggie looked at me as though I had come from another world. "I don't get it, but you'd better tell Mom. Dad's definitely going to flip out." "I suppose he will," I said sadly. "But I can't help it. I feel like I should have been a girl, just like you. I love dressing up and wearing frilly things, and I want to be the kind of girl Mom hoped you'd be, elegant and feminine. So what do you need from me?" Maggie asked cautiously. "I can't do anything about Dad, but I'm sure Mom will be surprised, though proud." "I'm having a lot of trouble with makeup and hairstyling," I admitted. "I was hoping you could help." "But you're a boy," Maggie exclaimed, exasperated. "Boys don't wear dresses or makeup, and they definitely don't wear their sister's underwear. We weren't exactly close, but I don't think I can help my brother become a girl." "Please, Maggie, I promise I'll be a great sister," I pleaded. "If you're serious about this, why not ask Mom for help?" Maggie suggested. "She knows more about makeup and hairstyling than I do. You're going to have to tell her eventually, so why not do it now and let her help?" "You don't understand, Maggie," I pouted. "I want to surprise Mom. I don't want to tell her until I can do everything a girl can do, until I'm as feminine as possible." "But what if others find out?" Maggie challenged, clearly trying to avoid helping me. "What about school?" "I guess they'll find out," I shrugged. "But that won't change anything. I'm going to be a girl, no matter what." After some persuasion, Maggie agreed to help, though it's not every day a girl's brother asks her to teach him how to be a girl. She didn't wear makeup herself, so she couldn't offer much guidance, but she promised to pick up some magazines for me and agreed to buy my own makeup. She had never been this nice to me as her brother. It was clear that being her sister would be much better. Mom continued to pressure Maggie about her clothes, but Maggie complained less. Instead, she accepted the clothes, jewelry, and makeup Mom bought her, then passed them on to me. It worked out well. Mom saw the items being used and eased off on Maggie. Everyone was happy: Mom, Maggie, and especially me. As weeks passed, Maggie seemed to forget her initial reservations and became very supportive of my transition from boys' clothes to girls' attire. My old briefs were replaced with the silkiest panties Maggie could find. I swapped my white sweat socks for girls' socks, bought several girls' t-shirts similar to Maggie's, and even found a pair of girls' sneakers that were plain enough to blend in. It was exhilarating to go to school dressed in panties, a girl's t-shirt, girls' socks, and sneakers. The thought of being trapped in this new identity was both frightening and thrilling, but no one seemed to notice I was just another long-haired guy to my friends and family. One day, after school had ended for the year, Mom questioned Maggie about why she spent so much on makeup and pretty clothes but never wore them out. "Don't worry about it, Mom," Maggie replied, trying to keep the surprise intact. "Maybe one day, when you stop bothering me, I'll get dressed up and let you take me shopping. Until then, just drop it." That wasn't the best response, and Maggie soon faced an intense lecture from Mom. She was grounded for a month, had her phone privileges revoked, and more consequences seemed imminent until I intervened. "Please don't yell at her, Mom," I pleaded. "She's just trying to help me surprise you." Mom paused, momentarily thrown off. "You're not part of this, Jimmy. Stay out of it." "But I am involved, and I'll prove it," I said, leaving the table. I went to my room, retrieved a box from my closet, and pulled out pictures Maggie had taken of me modeling different outfits. I returned to the kitchen and laid the photos out in front of Mom. "This is my surprise, the daughter you always wanted Maggie to be." Mom examined the pictures, then smiled warmly. "I'm sorry, Maggie, you look beautiful in these. Were you planning to surprise me?" "Not exactly, Mom," Maggie hesitated, glancing at me. "That's not me in these pictures." "Of course it is," Mom said, puzzled, as she looked between the pictures and Maggie. Finally, she noticed Maggie's gaze was fixed on me. "If it isn't you, then who is it?" she asked, turning to me. "It's me," I replied with pride. "I hope I look good enough to make you proud." "TT, this is you?" Mom gasped as Dad took the pictures from her hand. "What on earth is going on?" "Oh my lord," Dad said softly. "Tell me this is some kind of sick joke you're playing, Maggie." "I thought so too at first, Dad, but Jimmy convinced me otherwise," Maggie explained. "Believe it or not, that's Jimmy in those pictures." Mom stared at me in shock. "Jimmy?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You'd better have a really good explanation for this. How can he possibly explain this?" Dad roared, slamming the pictures down in front of me. "This is disgusting." "I don't understand," I said, feeling dejected. "It just seemed to happen all of a sudden, I don't know why." "Everyone, please calm down," Mom interjected, stepping between me and Dad. She placed the pictures in front of me. "Now, young man, can you please explain why you're wearing girls' clothes in these photos?" I thought for a moment about how to answer Mom's question before deciding to be straightforward. "I want to be a girl, that's why." "What?" Dad asked, clearly stunned by my revelation. "Are you serious?" Mom gasped. "You can't be serious. A girl? You want to be a girl?" Dad was visibly shocked, his face drained of color and his eyes wide. "When did this happen? You've never mentioned anything like this before." "I've never wanted anything more than to be a girl," I explained as best I could. "Maybe I didn't realize it before, but now I'm absolutely sure." "But why?" Mom asked, trying to stay calm despite her evident distress. "What made you decide you want to be a girl?" "I don't really know how it happened, Mom. I tried to ignore it and act like any other boy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I started trying on Maggie's clothes, and then I knew for sure I should have been a girl." I was on the verge of tears. "Please, Dad, don't be angry with me. I can't help how I feel." Dad looked at me, his initial disgust starting to fade. "When did you start feeling like you should have been a girl? What could make a normal boy suddenly want to be a girl?" "I'm not sure," I said, wiping a tear from my cheek. "The desire to dress up started a few months ago and just grew stronger. I tried to resist, but the feelings were overwhelming. One day, I was in the shower wanting to shave my legs and underarms, and before I knew it, I was wearing Maggie's dresses and then Mom's underwear." "Hold on a second," Maggie said, an unusual look in her eyes. Mom, when did you start getting those tapes for me? I don't know, Mom replied casually. 3 or 4 months ago. Why? And they were supposed to motivate me in school, right? Nothing else. Mom hesitated before answering. Not exactly. School was just a minor part. The tapes were meant to help you become a young lady, but I guess they were a waste of money. Maggie started laughing, tears streaming down her face. No, actually, they would have been worth every penny if I had listened to them. I'm confused, Dad said. Those tapes were meant to make you act like a young lady, but you never listened to them. What's the joke? I wanted to throw them away, Maggie said, laughing as she wiped her tears. But Jimmy stopped me. He's been listening to them all along. Mom, you got the sweet young lady you wanted, it's just that she's your son. Oh my God, Dad gasped, stunned. This can't be true. I did listen to them, I admitted. But they didn't seem to help my grades at all. There has to be a way to fix this, Mom cried. I never intended to turn him into a girl. It was meant for Maggie. I know, dear, Dad said, comforting her with a hug. I went along with it to make you happy. We'll find a way to fix it. What if you can't? Maggie asked. What then? The realization of what had happened seemed to diminish the small amount of resolve I had left. Please, there has to be a way, I sobbed. I was never meant to be like this. There must be some way to change me back. But you said you wanted to be a girl, Maggie said, frustration in her voice. I wish you'd make up your mind. Maggie sighed. First you want to be a girl, then you don't. I'm confused. So was I cried. Those tapes did this to me. I never wanted to be a girl. It's not my fault. Calm down and stop crying, Dad said firmly. This is all crazy, but there must be a way out. Just be patient, and for God's sake, don't let anyone see you dressed up. Mom and Dad contacted the company that made the tapes, but they had never encountered a problem like this before. It turned out that these tapes were a new product designed to help men transition into women. Initially successful with tapes that helped mothers transform their sons into sweet young ladies, the company expanded into creating tapes for women to change their tomboy daughters. Unfortunately, I had used a series of tapes intended for girls.